The focus of Senate Bill number 185 is death penalty for drug trafficking. Senate Bill number 186 is death penalty for kidnapping. Senate Bill number 187 is death penalty for aggravated rape. There should be separate hearings for different crimes. To bundle many crimes will dilute arguments and complicate definitions in determining whether a particular crime is heinous or not, because offensive acts may be of different characters. Kailangan na nating magpasa ng batas na magpupugsa punto por punto sa lumalala pa rin nating problema sa droga. There is now a need to enact a measure that will decisively repress drug trafficking. Is it heinous? Yes. Do we have compelling reasons? Yes. Procedurally, this bill is being filed separate from similarly intended bills on death penalty for other kinds of crimes, because we intend to move the bill forward with focus. By itself, the heinous crimes of drug trafficking is already a complicated issue. By focusing on death penalty for drug traffickers, we will be unburdened by more lengthy consideration of other offenses. We cannot allow the compelling nature of imposing death penalty or drug trafficking to be weighed down by less compelling reasons for other offenses. Huwag na tayong magbulag-bulagan, huwag na tayong magbingi-bingihan. Malala na ang problema nating tungkol sa droga.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. I just briefly like to enumerate the about half-dozen arguments that I would like to ask our resource persons wisdom on as the committees consider these bills. First, that the death penalty has been shown not to be an effective deterrent against crime. Secondly, Mr. Chairman, that the death penalty has a disproportionate impact on the poor. Third, Mr. Chairman, that in such a flawed and biased justice system such as we still have, there is little guarantee that innocent people would not be sentenced to death. Fourth, Mr. Chairman, that the death penalty is a cruel and inhuman form of punishment that gives up on the rehabilitative purpose of the justice system, even on the rehabilitative purpose of punishment. Fifth, Mr. Chairman, that the death penalty is inefficient. It actually costs more than life imprisonment and without making us safer. So it is not fair to require taxpayers to shoulder the burden for retribution alone. And last but not the least, Mr. Chairman, that the death penalty denies due process of law. In closing my brief manifestation, Mr. Chairman, pinapipili po nila tayo sa extrajudicial killings o judicial killings. Pero yun lang ba talaga ang pwedeng pagpilian ng mamamayan? Hindi ba nating pwedeng piliin ang isang epektibo, mabilis at may hustisyang sistemang pangkatarungan? Ibabalik natin ang parusang bitay, pero ang mga tulad ni Peter Lim ay pwedeng bumisita sa ating Malacanang Palace. Ibabalik ba natin ang parusang bitay, pero ang mga katulad ni Jack Lam ay kayang suhulan ang ating mga pampublikong opisyales? Ipapatupad ang parusang bitay sa isang sistema na kaya pang bilhin ng mamamayan at makapangyarihan ng katarungan? Hanggang korap pa at mabagal pa ang sistemang pangkatarungan sa Pilipinas, Mr. Chairman, walang garantiya na ang parusang bitay ay magbibigay ng tunay na katarungan para sa lahat. Katulad ng kasalukuyang extrajudicial killings, ang kaya lamang nito patayin ay ang mga mahihirap. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Are there any other senators? Just be brief, please, because we'd like to hear the panel. Okay, we invited them, so
yes,
I'll give you a minute.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much.
Briefly, I am no fool, but I have been and I always will be against the death penalty. Death penalty is wrong on legal, moral, ethical, and constitutional grounds. But yes, I'm here to listen more to the anti-death penalty advocates, for them to be able to convince the majority of our people not to support the bills pushing for the reimposition of death penalty. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. You just heard the turno and contra of two lady senators here.
Let us restore the death penalty law and bring back the faith of the public, especially the victims, in the ability of the criminal justice system to preserve peace and order in our society. Some 16 million Filipinos gave their mandate to President Rodrigo Roa Duterte when he promised to restore the death penalty. That is more than sufficient proof of the public sentiment about what it wants this administration to do for them. This administration includes the Senate and the House of Representatives. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your honors.
Thank you. Can we just proceed and finish all the because we're sorry?
Just a reaction. A matter of personal privilege.
All right. Just a very short one, please.
Yes. Attorney Topacio here,
Yes, Your Honor.
while not in very express terms, just called me a drug trafficker. I want him to take that back.
Your Honor, with all due respect, I did no such thing. In fact, the transcript of the records will bear me out when I say that whether those charges may be proven or not, we do not know. These are allegations, Your Honor. If
Yes, but of all people, why single out only Senator Leila de Lima? I'm not a drug trafficker. Bakit hindi mo pangalanan yung mga tunay na drug trafficker?
Your
Ako
Honor,
lang ang kinakasuhan niyo.
if Your Honor, please.
Excuse me. Session is suspended.
It's too much.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to address my question to Prosecutor Fadilyon. I'm sorry,
Prosecutor Fadulyon, sir.
Fadilyon, yes, Fadilyon. You are aware, Attorney Fadilyon, that under our Constitution, our country adopts the generally accepted principles of international law as part of the law of the land. You have heard Attorney Cabarde, Attorney Sunga, and a few others who cited our accession to the Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, which in effect imposes upon us the obligation not to impose the death penalty. And more importantly, on November 20, 2007, our country ratified the second optional protocol to the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, Article 1 of which says, no one within the jurisdiction of a state party to the present protocol shall be executed. Now, there was also an opinion expressed by Attorney Sunga that the protocol does not provide for any withdrawal or a derogation mechanism, which means that the party cannot reinstate the death penalty. And can you excuse me, Attorney Topacio? I'm raising a question on the resource person. Out of respect to the Senate, maybe you can sit down. Yes, you should. It means that the party to the protocol cannot reinstate the death penalty without violating the law. May we hear your comments on these very critical legal principle and points as the Council of Government?
The point here, Mr. Senator, is that yes, we do believe that we have international commitments, but we also believe that we also have responsibility to our countrymen. And that is something that we should also look into very carefully rather than close our eyes to what is happening in our country in light of honoring our commitments to the international community.
I assume, Mr. Fadelion, that when the government ratified this convention And when the Senate concurred in the ratification, we were conscious of the situation, we were conscious of the effects on us. We are now in this situation where we have an international treaty commitment, which under the Constitution is part of the law of the land. We, as principal counsel for government, and having stated the position that you are in favor of reimposing the death penalty, how do we argue ourselves out of this legally binding treaty that the President has ratified and which the Senate has concurred to, which completes the process, and therefore it is a binding treaty on the on our country?
Sir, I would be lying if I would be able to tell you exactly how we would be able to get out of this bind. However, it is our position that...
No, you have to tell us,
Yes, sir.
because we are debating on whether or not to reimpose the death penalty, and one of the very critical issues is, are we violating our international treaty obligation?
Well, Mr. Senator, sir, I believe that if we have entered into these international commitments subsequent to all, after all deliberations have actually been made, the only point that we are trying to make is that when we came up with the Constitution, it was with the recognition that future situations would have to be considered. And when I'm talking about future situations, I'm talking about the compelling reasons that we have now for discussing the reimposition of the death penalty. I wish I could say with all candor, Mr. Senator, sir, if indeed there are ways by which we can get out of this international commitments, or we can opt out of these international commitments, but I'm not in a position to say that just at this time, Mr.
Right
Senator.
now, there is no way that you can think of for us to be able to get out of this international treaty commitment.
We have to give precedence to what we believe our countrymen would want at this time for our nation. Yes, we do want to honor our international commitments.
We should, yeah.
Yes, Mr. Senator, we do honor our international commitments. But at the same time, we should not lose track of the fact that there are certain needs which are peculiar to our country that we have to look into and address. And maybe that is something that we should revisit, no? If we are to see if we are going to opt out of these international agreements. As you mentioned, as of this time, there are no opt-out provisions. However, we still maintain that the voice of the people as we hear it now is the one that should be considered, Mr. Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Just a follow-up question. Thank you, Mr. Senator. Point well taken. And I will pursue the point. When the Senate ratifies a treaty or an international convention, is that a law?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
So if the President violates that law and says, we're not going to honor that treaty, is the President in violation of a law?
Yes, Mr. Senator.
So the logical answer is, we're not in any position to withdraw from this law because it is already a law, and that law was ratified by the Senate, probably discussed the matter of whether we can withdraw about it, and knew that we cannot withdraw from this commitment, and therefore, if we pass on this law, we are violating the Constitution because the Philippines renounces war as an instrument of national policy and adheres to the generally accepted principles of international law as part of the law of the land. Is that correct?
Yes, you're correct, Mr. Chairman.
So, maybe you might want to find it your way clear na mapaliwanag sa tao na pag ang tao, ang batas, katulad dito, ay isang batas sapagkat ito ay pinasa ng Senado alinsunod sa tratado na pagka ito'y pinasa, ito'y batas na hindi natin magagawa ito na hindi natin babaliin yung batas na ginawa natin. Tama po ba yan?
Tama po, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. So, i-adjourn ko na ito. Wala na tayong pag-uusapan.
Miss...
Yun ang problema ko ngayon eh. Yun ang problema namin. Suggestion ni Senator Lacson. Unless Unless magbibigay kayo ng
Mr.
position paper na bago.
Mr. Chairman, may tanong lang ako from a non-lawyer member of this committee, Vice Chairman. Ano ba yung repercussions pagka ipinilit nating ipasa ito in violation of the international law or the treaty that we are a signatory of? Ano maging repercussions sa Pilipinas?
Marami ho. Internationally, I think there will be a lot of repercussions on the part of the Philippines if we do...
For example, what?
Well, there will be violation of the protocols, Mr. Senator, and that we will be, I guess...
Okay, next question is, how do we opt out in case we opt to opt out?
Mr. Senator, sir, kanina po, no, binabanggit, wala naman, ang sinasabi is, the provision of second protocols, silent po, di ba? Wala naman po sinasabing hindi pwedeng mag-opt out. Ang amin lamang po is that probably, no, taking the advice of the chairman, we will raise the issue. I will raise the issue with the Secretary of Justice, pointing and bringing to the table the concerns that were raised, no, on the international commitments that we have. Because indeed, as the chairman had pointed out, it would be a violation of the law if we do not honor the treaties that we have entered into.
Okay, go ahead, Senator Dillon.
Mr. Chairman, since it is the position of the Department of Justice that there is nothing in the treaty which really prevents us from opting out. All right. The fact is we have ratified the treaty and we have concurred in the ratification with the treaty. Now, if you're saying that we can withdraw from this, shouldn't we withdraw from the treaty first, repeal it before we discuss any matter related to the reimposition of the death penalty?
Yes, sir.
So we just have to suspend all the hearings on the death penalty and repeal first this and withdraw from this treaty, so that we will not be in violation of international law. Is that correct? Of our own law. I have a question on...
Well, that is a matter that we can do, sir.
So you agree that we suspend at the very least these hearings on the death penalty bill?
If only to clarify the matter, sir, on our being able to honor our international commitments and to get the position of the Department of Justice Secretary clear on the matter, Your Honor. I would not have any objection to the suggestion that we adjourn on the discussions on the death penalty.
Yes, Senator De Lima.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Still on the
By
same...
the way, just as a matter of record, there are two secretaries of justice here, Secretary Dillon and Secretary De Lima. I'm not even a Secretary of Justice. I'm a humble lawyer. And Senator Lacson knows the law because he's our top policeman once upon a time, and he does his homework. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Still on the same point, our ratification of the second optional protocol to the ICCPR. I take the firm position that, well, the Constitution was enacted ahead of our ratification of the second optional protocol, ahead of our ratification of the ICCPR and the second optional protocol to the ICCPR. And under settled jurisprudence, Bayan Muna versus Alberto Romulo, it says that treaties and international agreements duly ratified have a limiting effect on an otherwise exercise of an act of sovereignty. That is a very fundamental principle. And dun po sa punto, pwede ho ba tayo mag-opt out o mag-withdraw from this second optional protocol, from the ICCPR and the second optional protocol? Meron po tayong very clear position dito na unang-una po, yung pag-ratify natin sa second optional protocol was without any reservation. And then both the ICCPR and the second optional protocol does not contain a provision on withdrawal or denunciation or opting out. May I refer you to Article 56 of the Vienna Convention on the Law of Treaties, to which we are also a party, which we have earlier ratified, which states that treaties which do not have provisions on withdrawal or denunciation cannot be denounced or be withdrawn from. Napako na po tayo dyan. That's a binding and firm ratification, something that we cannot opt out, and we have to live with that commitment. Klarado po yan. Kaya natatawa po ako sa mga naging side comments po ng aking mga kasamahan dito na dyan pa lang pong sa punto na yan. I think wag na muna tayong magsayang ng oras to further deliberate on the propriety of the pending bills calling for reimposition of death penalty. Legal, constitutional grounds. Wala ho dapat makakatalo sa mga arguments na yan. Thank you.
Iwasan ninyo yan sila. Walang gagawin niya kundi to bring trouble to the country by putting you in parity with criminals. Nandito tayo, gobyerno, hinuhuli natin sila. Itong mga bleeding hearts, human rights, they are bringing the issue up in parity with them. Sabi ko, no way that you will acquire jurisdiction over my person, not in a million years. At hindi ako papayag. I cannot renege kasi kung lahat papayag ako, kayong lahat polis nagtrabaho, sadya man o hindi, palagay na natin merong extrajudicial killing. Haros lahat yan. Mahirap yan. But believe me, I am brighter than them. The issues that I raised is really, andyan lang, that no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Kasama tayo dyan sa due process. What is the due process dyan in relation to the ICC? Publication of the law. Basahin mo ang treaty. It talks about a court, criminal court. Then there is a chapter about prosecutors. Then the third is the ways of committing genocide. Wala ngang extrajudicial dyan eh. Pagka ganon, and the definition of crimes and penalties, it is purely a criminal international law. Na sabi ng Supreme Court, kung hindi matanga ito mga gago, di basahin na lang nila yan. If it is a law, especially a criminal law that there is a sanction, mapriso ka, it must be published. Because the law says, no, you cannot, ignorance of the law excuses no one. Sir, hindi ko kasi alam batas. So what is the mechanism that would change the story? Is the publication. When it is published in the Gazette, it now puts you on notice, at least constructive notice na may batas, even a treaty or a law or whatever, lalo na kung may preso. Dapat doon, pinirmahan sa Malacanang, pinadala sa Senate for concurrence, then ibinalik nila sa Office of the President, because the Office of the President will now cause its publication to make it binding after 15 days. But just because it is a treaty, it binds us. Loko-loko ba kayo? Sabi niya, because a treaty need not be published because it is immediately effective. Puta. Ikulong mo ako without due process of law? Anong due process yan? No person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. What is the due process involved here? Publication. So that we will be put on notice kayong lahat police na may batas. But they never publish it. Sila-sila lang yan sa Senate, yung presidente nagpirma at pinadaga agad sa Rome. I never read the law. I was a mayor then. Wala akong nabasa. I was not put on notice. it is a legal excuse. Yes. Eh bakit ikaw gamitin? Napakabubo ko ng mga abogado. You know, as I said, I was a prosecutor for 8 years. I was doing trial work. The first thing that I would really do if I hold a case, either for preliminary or do we have this one? Does the court have jurisdiction? Then the next query would be, does the court have jurisdiction over the person of the accused? By arrest, surrender, or inside, kasi walang bail, or on bail. Then arraign. That is the time that there is jurisdiction. Eh kung walang publication, there is no law to be talking about. What is the basis for continuing an investigation if the law that you are relying is flawed and it is a total alien to us?